It all started on a quiet Sunday afternoon, one of those days where you just want to get your errands done and relax. I had just come back from grocery shopping, arms full of bags, juggling way too many things at once. As I walked toward my apartment, I noticed someone staring at me from across the courtyard. It was Karen, the president of our HOA. She's known around the neighborhood for being, let's just say, involved in everyone's business. But I never expected what would happen next. I was halfway up the steps when she stormed over, demanding to know where I was going with her groceries. At first, I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. She insisted those bags were hers, even though I had the receipts and literally just came from my car. Things escalated fast. She blocked my path, yelling loud enough for the whole complex to hear. I tried to keep calm, but then she actually called 911 on me for bringing in my own groceries. You won't believe what she told the operator or what happened when the police showed up. It went from strange to completely unbelievable in minutes, and I caught the whole thing on camera. Stick around, because this is one story you'll want to hear till the very end. So, here's some backstory to help you understand why this situation got so out of hand. Karen isn't just any HOA member. She's the one who seems to have taken control of everything in the neighborhood. From petty rules about lawn decorations to deciding who can park where, she's always on the lookout, making sure her authority is never questioned. But this time, it wasn't about rules or parking. It was something completely unexpected: groceries. Now, I've lived here for a while, and I've had my fair share of odd encounters with Karen. She's always been a bit nosy, but never this aggressive. What made this even stranger was her claim that the groceries I was carrying somehow belonged to her. At first, I thought maybe it was a joke or some kind of mix-up, but her tone left no room for doubt. She was serious. I've been trying to figure out if she had some reason to want my groceries. Was she having a bad day? Was there some hidden problem no one else knew about? It felt like there was something deeper going on, something beyond just a simple misunderstanding. The whole thing was starting to feel less like a neighborhood dispute and more like a mystery I needed to solve. And just when I thought it couldn't get weirder, the police showed up. But what happened next? That part I'm going to share with you in the next video. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. When the police arrived, the tension in the air was almost unbearable. I could see Karen's expression shift from anger to something else, maybe frustration or even panic. I tried to explain calmly that those groceries were mine, showing them my receipts and even pointing out my car where I'd just unloaded everything. But Karen insisted, louder than before, that I was trying to steal from her, that these bags belonged to her household. It felt surreal, like I was caught in some strange neighborhood drama that had spun wildly out of control. What made things more complicated was that some neighbors started gathering around, watching the whole scene unfold. A few whispered among themselves, clearly uncomfortable but unsure whose side to take. I even overheard someone mention that Karen had been acting oddly the past few weeks, more controlling than usual, more demanding. Others thought she might be under some kind of stress, but no one really knew for sure. It was like the perfect storm, a normally tense HOA leader pushing too hard, and me, just trying to live my life without conflict. Meanwhile, I couldn't stop thinking about why Karen was so obsessed with those groceries. Did she really believe they were hers? Or was this just a power play to intimidate me, and maybe others? The whole situation was unraveling into something much bigger than I expected, and the mystery only deepened as the officers talked quietly with Karen off to the side. What would they decide? And how far was Karen willing to take this? The answer was still hanging in the air, and I was stuck right in the middle of it. As the police officers finished speaking with Karen, I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. The whole courtyard seemed frozen in time, neighbors watching silently, waiting to see what would happen next. Karen's face was red, her voice sharp and defensive, but there was something in her eyes that didn't add up. Was this really about groceries, or was there something else she was trying to cover up? The whole situation was becoming more confusing and intense by the minute. One of the officers finally turned to me, asking for my side again, while Karen continued to interrupt, insisting I was causing trouble and trying to make the neighborhood unsafe. I tried to stay calm, but inside I was shaking. How did a simple trip to the store turn into this nightmare? It felt like I was caught in a story that no one wanted to admit was spinning out of control. Suddenly, Karen pulled out something unexpected. A small note she claimed proved the groceries belonged to her. I hadn't seen this before, and I could tell the officers were intrigued, which only made the tension worse. The neighbors whispered even louder, some glancing at me with curiosity, others casting wary looks at Karen. I knew this was the moment everything could change. Would the police believe me? Or was Karen going to get away with making a false accusation? And what would happen after they left? The answers were still out there, hanging just beyond reach, leaving me, and everyone watching, on edge, waiting for the next move in this unbelievable HOA showdown. Just when I thought things couldn't get any crazier, the police officer asked Karen to show the note again, and that's when the real shock hit. The note wasn't what anyone expected. It was actually a grocery list, but it wasn't hers. It had someone else's name on it, and the handwriting looked nothing like Karen's. That threw everyone off balance. The officer exchanged a glance with his partner, clearly confused. Why would Karen bring a grocery list that didn't belong to her and use it to accuse me of stealing? Then, out of nowhere, a neighbor stepped forward. She quietly told the officers that Karen had been borrowing groceries from different people in the building for weeks, sometimes without asking, sometimes outright taking things. And this wasn't the first time she caused drama over it. That little revelation spread through the crowd like wildfire, making the whole story even messier. I stood there, feeling a mix of shock and disbelief. This wasn't just about groceries anymore. It was about trust, boundaries, and how far someone might go when they think they're entitled to other people's stuff. The police were now facing a much bigger problem than they bargained for. And me? I was stuck in the middle of a conflict that was growing beyond control. With the neighborhood watching and tensions running high, the question wasn't just who owned those groceries anymore. It was how this whole situation was going to end. And honestly, I had no idea. As the neighbor's words hung in the air, the officers exchanged looks that told me things were about to get serious. One of them calmly asked Karen to explain why she'd been taking groceries from others. At first, she tried to deny it, but as more neighbors began sharing stories, her confident front started to crack. It became clear she'd been using the HOA's authority not to help the community, but to push her own agenda, and in this case, to claim things that weren't hers. The officers finally made it clear. Karen's accusations against me were baseless, and calling 911 over groceries was an abuse of emergency services. They reminded her of the importance of respecting her neighbors and warned her about escalating conflicts unnecessarily. Relief washed over me, but the tension wasn't gone entirely. Karen's face flushed with embarrassment and anger, but she said nothing more, retreating back into the shadows of the neighborhood she once tried to control. Just when I thought the whole ordeal was over, the officer handed me a small envelope Karen had dropped in the confusion. Inside was a handwritten apology, not just to me, but to several neighbors, for her behavior. The twist? It wasn't just a simple apology. She admitted she'd been struggling with personal issues that affected her judgment, promising to seek help and change. The crowd slowly dispersed, the neighborhood buzzing with new stories and fresh questions. The grocery drama had sparked something bigger, a chance for all of us to rethink how we treat each other. But even as things settled, I couldn't help but wonder what Karen's next move would be. This story was far from finished. After the police left, the neighborhood slowly returned to its usual calm, but things felt different. The grocery drama had exposed cracks beneath the surface, issues we all knew were there but never talked about. Karen's apology note circulated among neighbors, sparking conversations that hadn't happened before. People shared their own experiences with her controlling behavior, but also expressed hope that maybe, just maybe, this was a turning point. I decided to reach out to Karen after a few days. At first, she was hesitant, almost defensive, but eventually we had an honest conversation. She opened up about some personal struggles she'd been dealing with, things that made her feel anxious and out of control, which might explain her actions. While I didn't excuse what she did, I realized everyone has their own battles, and sometimes those struggles come out in unexpected and unhealthy ways. What stood out most to me through this whole ordeal was how quickly misunderstandings can escalate, especially in a tight-knit community like ours. Something as simple as bringing in groceries turned into a full-blown neighborhood conflict, fueled by assumptions, stress, and a lack of communication. It reminded me how important it is to stay patient and kind, even when situations feel frustrating or unfair. I also learned a lot about standing up for myself calmly and respectfully. Showing the receipts, keeping my cool, and staying honest helped clear things up without making the situation worse. And seeing neighbors step in to share their stories made me realize how powerful it can be when a community comes together, even in difficult moments. Looking back, this whole experience was a strange but valuable lesson in communication, boundaries, and empathy. Karen's grocery dispute was just the tip of the iceberg, but it opened the door for better understanding and hopefully a healthier neighborhood moving forward. So, if you ever find yourself caught in a conflict with a difficult neighbor, or anyone, really remember to stay calm, listen, and don't be afraid to speak your truth. Sometimes, the most unexpected situations can teach us the most important lessons. Thanks for watching and hearing my story. If you've had a crazy neighbor experience or a wild HOA moment, share it in the comments. I'd love to hear what happened to you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next story. Until next time, take care and keep those groceries close.